Welcome to the first in a series of videos that will cover magical foundations, magical fundamentals. I did speak about this at the end of my last video. I'm going to go through one of my previous books that I wrote called The Black Crow. But whilst going through all the chapters, I actually realised that there's some material in the one before that, which was the reality of things, that I'll also be including in this. So I actually drew up a schedule of all the videos that are going to be included in this series last night, and there's 26 of them. So this is going to take you well into 13 weeks. So basically there's a lot of material to cover. But it'll take you right from the beginning of a practice, a proper magical practice, with, as we're going to discuss today, is stillness and meditation. But it'll take you right through to how to actually create sacred space or cast a circle. We'll be looking at traditional witchcraft, we'll be looking at Wicca, we'll be looking at ceremonial magic with left-hand part, lesser vanishing ritual of the pentagram, and also going into the Kabbalistic version of the Kabbalistic cross and the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram that I was taught by Yukoba Swat, which I think you'll find quite interesting. There's some adaptations that actually make it more powerful. And we'll be going into ethics, and there's a whole menagerie, there's a whole lot of stuff that we will be covering. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the first video. Okay, so stillness and meditation, there's a few things here that are absolutely necessary for any kind of magical practice. Stillness, meditation, breath work, concentration, visualization, all of these things, if you perfect them right at the beginning and you get them right and you actually do take the time to concentrate on actually developing these practices, then you'll find that your magical practice itself will become stronger, easier. If you just jump straight into magic, yes, you can do the magic, but it's not going to be as powerful as opposed to if you actually did take the time to actually perfect and get these things at the beginning right. So beginning with stillness. Now, stillness, we could say, is a broad not doing. And when I say not doing, what I mean is opposite to what your body, your mind is actually used to doing. And because it's not used to actually doing a particular thing, what happens is when you do a not doing, then it actually shifts your consciousness out of its current state. And it can be any small thing, really. I mean, if you get up in the morning and put your pants on right foot first, then left foot, or right leg first and then left leg, then a not doing would actually be the opposite way. So you put your left leg in first and then your right leg. When you get up, if the first thing you do is switch on your coffee machine, you don't. You do something else before you switch on the coffee machine. So it shifts the usual state of doing things into an alternate state. And in shamanism, especially found in Castaneda's work, when you do a not doing, it's if you continue to do not doings throughout the day and throughout the weeks, then you start to shift your consciousness out of this reality into an alternate reality. And practicing stillness is a not doing, in the sense that we go through our day and we're constantly moving, we're constantly thinking, we're constantly feeling, we're constantly doing something. We're always in a state of motion, and you could say in a state of chaos. So when we practice stillness, it shifts our consciousness out of that ordinary reality that we're so used to into an alternate reality. And it quietens the mind. It brings the entire being into a state of stillness, really. And this becomes quite vital to a good magical practice. So through this state of stillness, and especially when we use an asana in the practice, we do shift our mind out of our body in many respects. Now, the word asana, it kind of originally just meant a position, but it's developed and now it's more or less meaning sitting with comfort and ease. But you'll find that using an asana, especially at the beginning of your practice, it's not very comfortable. Even the simplest of the asanas is not comfortable. But over time it becomes comfortable, and you'll find in a few days it's a lot easier than when you started. Now I just want to say right at this point, when you start these practices, especially stillness and meditation, right at the beginning of your practice, you're going to find that probably the first day is easy to do. You get through it and you think, oh, well, this is a breeze. Then the second day, your mind tends to battle. It starts putting up barriers and it kind of tries to stop you from doing it. It's this little, in chaos magic, in Peter Carroll's work, he calls it, I'll find out what he calls it, I just cannot remember right now, my mind's gone blank, and I'll put it in the comments below. But his term for it, in the way he explains it, is actually perfectly explained. But it's kind of like a mind enemy almost. You kind of, your mind goes, oh, you know, I don't need to do it today, I can do it tomorrow, just practice double time tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and it just doesn't happen, and then continues on from there. But you know, on the second day and the third day, you'll battle, and you kind of can't figure out why it was so easy the first day, but then after that it becomes so difficult, and it's because you have expectations. You don't have expectations on the first day, so it feels so much easier because those expectations are gone. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what is supposed to come from this practice. Oh, we've got the Hardy dolls going crazy this morning. Sorry, it's what time is it now? 20 to 6 in the morning. They're doing their morning calls and everything. They love doing that. And then on the second day, because you've already done it, then all of a sudden you have expectations, and you expect it to be a particular way, and all of a sudden it's not, because every day, every practice, you feel different. You're going to be different, so your practice isn't going to be the same. So try and have no expectations every single day that you do this, and you'll get through it a lot easier. But there is that little enemy in the head that tries to stop you from doing it, and, you know, delay it for another day. It's fine. It's not going to really bother you that much. But then what happens is, and I'm speaking from experience, I'm probably the perfect example of this. You don't practice the second day, and then you put it off the third day, and then the fourth day, and then you stop your practice altogether. And then in a month or two, you think, okay, let me try this again. So you start, first day's fine, second day's fine. You might go for 4 or 5 days, and then, you know, tired today, don't feel like doing it, blah blah, and then you end up stopping again. And 2-3 years down the line, you're still nowhere, and you literally have to start from the beginning. So if you actually stick to it on a daily basis, continue for 6 months, and you'll find that you've progressed an incredible amount in that time. Okay, so getting back to the asanas, if you actually read Liber 4 by Crowley, he speaks of 4 asanas in there. So there's the God asana, the Ibis asana, the Thunderbolt, and the Dragon. Although if you look at the Thunderbolt asana in yoga, it's usually represented as a dragon, but I'm not sure why the names differ. But now you can try the dragon, or what modern yoga seems to call thunderbolt, where you sit on you basically sit on your heels with your hands on your laps, back up straight. But the one I focus on is the God position, because it's a lot easier, especially for someone who's not used to actually sitting in an asana. So it's very simple. All you do is you sit on a chair, your back straight up, and your knees need to be touching. They need to be together. And then you just place your palms on your thighs, and you sit like that. Now, I do find that, in a minute or two, your legs are going to start pulling apart. You can constantly keep on bringing your knees together, and just keep practicing that until it becomes easy. God, bloody hardy does. Maybe we should be doing the ibis position. Shouting away that way. Okay, so you can keep practicing. Your thighs are going to get incredibly sore. It might look simple. Just try it. Just sit in this position where your back's up straight, your knees are pulled together and they're touching, and you've got your hands on your thighs, and just hold that for like 30 seconds. If it's not something you're used to, this is going to get incredibly uncomfortable. So I find that I just take my thighs, my knees apart just a little bit, and it becomes a lot more comfortable. And that's how I practice myself. I'm not going to kill myself. This is the main focus about this is stillness. You can go overboard with discipline. That's up to you. If you prefer that, that's fine. But anyway, so God position is back up straight, chin slightly tucked in, and thighs together with hands on thighs, and that's it. That's the asana that we're going to be using. And all you do with the practice of stillness is that's it. You just basically just breathe normally, and you just allow your mind to let the thoughts go. I've spoken about this in previous videos about meditation, and you'll find it quite broadly across the internet, where in meditation you just let the thoughts go. You cannot completely empty the mind. You can't empty all thoughts from the mind. It's impossible. I have spoken about the 7 ± 2 theory in previous video as well, but just to recap that quickly. The 7 ± 2 theory is one whereby you have always got at least 5 thoughts in your head, up to as many as 9. So when you're in a very relaxed state, you've got about 5 thoughts in your head. When you're in an active state, you've got 9. So that's why it's 7 ± 2. So it doesn't matter how relaxed you become, you've always got at least 5 thoughts. So to actually clear your mind completely of thought is actually impossible. So with meditation, we don't clear the mind, we just quiet the mind. And this means that when a thought crops up, you just gently let it go and you carry on with your practice. So this brings us into what's called one-pointed meditation. Now, this is usually considered a Buddhist practice, and it's quite simple to use, and it's quite effective. So what you do, you focus on one point, and they suggest that you focus on the tip of your nose. So as you breathe in, you just focus on the tip of your nose. What you can do is focus on the breath itself. So as you breathe in, you just focus on the breath coming in, filling your lungs, and then going out again. And constantly in this constant movement of the breath, you just focus on that. Or as I say, you can focus just on the tip of your nose. So as you breathe, you're focusing there. You're breathing in and out through your nose, you're just focusing on the tip. So that's quite easy to do. And what happens is, because you've got a focal point, it's easier to stay in that stillness for a longer period of time. Whenever a thought comes in, your thinking shifts from the tip of your nose or whatever focal point you're using to that thought, and then all you do is just gently let that go and come back to your focal point, and just keep practicing that, and it becomes, over time, it becomes a lot easier. So why is stillness and meditation so important for magical practice? I touched on it briefly previously, but let's just have a more in-depth look at it. Some people think that meditation should be separate from magical practice. So, you practice your meditation on a daily basis, and then whenever you need to do spell working or magic ritual or whatever it may be, then you go and do that. So you keep them separate, but it shouldn't be, because when you are doing some form of magical ritual, and everything is a magical practice actually, but when you're doing an actual ritual or spell working, in order to make it most effective, you need to quiet the mind, because you need to be completely focused on the task at hand. Your mind needs to be completely focused on the will and the intent in order to direct the energy that so that the spell work or the ritual practice is most effective. If you're constantly thinking of other things, then your mind keeps shifting away from the actual intent of what you're doing or supposed to be doing, and this causes the magic to be somewhat ineffective. It kind of dampens it. It reduces its effectiveness a great deal. So before you start any proper magical practice or ritual, spell working, etc., you should just spend a bit of time calming the mind and getting into that state of stillness. And as I say, the state of stillness shifts you from your ordinary reality into an alternate reality, and that's what you're basically doing when you go into a magical practice. You're actually shifting your state out of your ordinary life into this magical sphere. And I mean, when you cast a circle, you are creating your own universe, your own little macrocosm in your little space, and you become the creatrix within that space. So you want to still the mind and calm the mind and shift it out of the ordinary reality. Now, one other thing about practicing stillness is that you may find that you go into a state of equilibrium. This can also be called a state of no breath. And by no breath, I mean that you actually stop breathing. So during your meditation, you breathe out, and you reach such a state of equilibrium that you stop breathing. You don't breathe back in again. And I mean, I don't know. It happened to me once. I don't know how long it continued for. Unfortunately, I didn't have a timer and nobody there to actually time it me. But I have heard from a very reliable source, one that I trust implicitly, that he stopped for 2 hours. And he's also heard reports of monks actually not going into this no-breath equilibrium state for like 2 or 3 days. I don't know, I can't vouch for that. I don't know how true that is. But anyway. So the no-breath state is where you actually stop breathing. And now it's not dangerous. It won't harm the body, even though it seems like it would. And if it does happen to you, and I'm telling you this just in case it does happen to you, so you don't panic too much, but you're going to panic the first time anyway. When it does happen, you you're in the state of complete and utter tranquility, and your mind is totally alert. But you're not in your body anymore. You're outside the experience of everything, really. It's probably easier to do it than it is to try and explain it, because it's a state that we're so not used to that trying to explain it becomes almost impossible. But what happens is your brain tends to kick in after a little while, and it says you're not breathing, and logically, if you're not breathing, you're going to die. So your brain kicks in and it just goes crazy, and it forces you to stop breathing, and you come out of this state of equilibrium or tranquility or state of no breath. So as I said, it might not happen to you, it might happen. I'm only putting this in here just in case it does happen and you're aware of what it is and there's actually nothing wrong. Because the first time it happened to me, nobody told me, and I panicked like crazy. And yeah, as I say, if it happens, just let it happen for as long as you can, until your brain kicks in and forces you out of it. Now, with this practice of stillness, what you can do is you just start breathing normally. You'll probably find that because you're actually practicing some form of meditation, that you're going to start breathing quite deeply, deeper than usual, let's put it that way. And so you continue to breathe deeply and just carry on that way. Just breathe, let it be natural, let your breath come naturally. And as you continue, you'll find that your breath starts to become a little more shallow, until you get to a point where you're hardly breathing at all. But what happens, imagine it like you're breathing into the bottom of your lungs, and then as time goes on, you're breathing further up, so you're starting to fill less of your lungs. And then eventually it gets to this point where you're not breathing into your lungs because you're breathing up here. But then it continues to move up, and you end up breathing into your third eye. And that's the aim of what I'm trying to explain now, is that you bring your breath into your third eye. And that is where you really reach a state of stillness, a state of tranquility, a state of equilibrium. And you might not get into that state of no breath where you're not breathing for hours, but just let your breath get shallower and shallower and shallower until you find that you're barely breathing at all. If you actually do focus on your breath, you'll find that you're breathing so small. The breath is so minute that it's barely even there, but you are breathing in and out through your nose, and you have to do it. Let's just put it this way, you have to do it. I can't tell you what it's like or how to do it. You've just got to do it. So practice stillness. And so next week, or not next week, the next video, I'm going to start going into what I call an active meditation, which is the one that I actually use before I'm going to go practice some kind of magical ritual or what have you. Now with the active meditation, it's very different to this, but it does also bring you into a state of stillness, because you might find it's actually a lot easier than practicing one point of meditation, because what it does is you actively focus on particular points of your body, and you are humming as you vibrate the energy within those parts of the body. And then I'll also go through to creating an energy ball between the hands with that active meditation practice, because that's the way I was taught right at the beginning. When I met Yakoba Swartz, the first thing he taught me was this series of meditations or practices that we start with the mother breath, and then we tune and tone the body, and eventually we are creating a ball of energy between our hands. And it's nice to do because you can actually feel the energy that you've created or brought up or built up within your body through this simple meditation practice. So that's a lot different to stillness, but you should also practice stillness. It is a vital aspect of doing magic, is that stillness. So if you've got any value out of this video, please just smash that like button, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, cheers.